Good evening. My name is Johanna Koljonen and you are watching Crosstalks, a collaboration between two of Sweden's leading universities, Stockholm University and KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology. Please do join us in discussing today's topics on Twitter, where our handle is Crosstalks TV and our hashtag is Crosstalks. Automation and artificial intelligence are posed to make a large portion of today's workforce redundant. Recent reports have made the staggering claim that half of all jobs on today's market will be gone in 20 years. Even if you take these numbers with a grain of salt, it is clear that the nature of labor is changing. Where and how will we work in the future? How will employers, industries and politicians need to adapt to these changes? Here to discuss these exciting topics are Gunnar Karlsson, Professor of Teletraffic Systems and Director of the Laboratory of Communication Networks at KTH Royal Institute of Technology. Lihui Wang, Professor and Chair of Sustainable Production Systems at KTH Royal Institute of Technology. And Hugo Westerlund, Professor and Director for the Stress Research Institute, Stockholm University. Welcome to Crosstalks. Gunnar, as a professor in information technology, you have a good overview of this digital evolution. How do you see the job market changing in the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, 10, 20 years is a long time in technology. I mean, just reminding you that 10 years ago we didn't have a smartphone. 20 years ago, Google didn't exist. We had the first web instances. So if you predict the same amount of time into the future, you will see probably big changes, maybe even unanticipated things. I think we can take for granted that we'll have self-driving vehicles, both cars and then smaller trucks and lorries in our cities. The automation of services through software will be quite visible. I think simple technologies like a sewing machine, which today is not yet automated, will also be prevalent. And this will have, of course, implications for society. With self-driving cars, we don't own a car, we buy a transport service, which means that all taxi drivers are redundant. All drivers for lorries are redundant. And the sewing machine will replace all manual workers in Bangladesh. So certainly we can see potential big changes.
Do you think we should be worried about this? Is this a looming crisis, as the reports would have it?
It depends on the role of the work. If we still can have good lives, if we still have food and houses and so forth, we still have orderly societies, then it could be better society because we have time over for tasks that we find more fulfilling than some of the mundane and routine work that we do today.
It sounds like some very big ifs there. Do you think that we, the public, really understand at all what's coming in terms of digital technology?
What I find when I've been part of this discussion is that people are aware of the automation that goes on in industry with robots. And they see robots in their homes, cleaning robots, you see lawnmowers and so forth. What I find more less of awareness of is the automation of services through software. And that this automation can be very advanced. That job tasks that are done now by highly educated persons will disappear. So automation will not be addressing full monolithic jobs, but there will be tasks. So in an accounting office, instead of 5 persons, you now need 4 because you automated some tasks. Then 2 years later, there are 3, and then 2. And this is how we go piecemeal, task by task will be automated. And the complexity and the skills of software by machine learning and various artificial intelligence techniques are rapidly improving and are very powerful. And I think that awareness is not there.
It's very, very interesting. And we'll return to this in some different ways, I think, during this conversation. Lihui Wang, you work with industrial production. So what do you think about robots and automation replacing humans in this field? Do you agree with this vision that the jobs will go and robots will do it all?
to a certain extent, the robot and automation already replaced many jobs. If we look back in the past, many jobs has been replaced, but those jobs, in my opinion, are quite dirty, dangerous, and most need repetitive work. So stressful job. Those has been replaced. But those workers perhaps find a new job in different offices. And robot introduce a new way of working. And of course, someone needed to look after how to create a robot program and so on. So I'm not really think that robot will completely replace a human. Humans still need to be around.
But the specific individuals who are working in industrial environments today will perhaps not be retrained to produce the robots themselves. So there may be a sort of transitional cost in these industries, a human cost.
Yeah.
I think that you've said that humans will also work alongside robots in a different way in the future. Could you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, and in a way, in the past, robots and automation replaced lots of jobs. And to a certain extent, the robot cannot replace the human completely, because on the shop floor, there's still jobs need human, and especially some job, if we look at the final assembly line of a car, there's a lot of cables. They need flexibility to make a decision on the spot and in that situation how to do the job. And a robot can replace a human if that job is very strict. So we can use a program to do that. And in that situation, human and a robot work together. We need to address a lot of issues. And without programming, if you can control the robot, that robot can help you a lot. In this situation, mainly we wanted to address is how human and robot will work together safely. So that's one of the big challenge. And also make robot programming free is another challenge. And for human and robot work together, robot can help human. So we are not saying robot to replace a human job, but more in an assistive way. If a robot can lift a heavy component to the right position, right height, orientation, so human can do the assembly job easily.
So the idea is, I'd say this is very interesting. So that there's a limit to robot development today, which is how smart and flexible the robots can be. They can do a wide variety of tasks, but they cannot decide between them. So the human can be a sort of a conductor of an orchestra of robots, so to speak, and can create do very complex work in this partnership that might not be possible otherwise.
Yeah.
Do you think the tendency still is, though, that fewer humans would be needed, or is it in fact that you would have that you could have these humans with groups of robots in quite large numbers doing more complex tasks?
Because we increase the efficiency and productivity, I think the total number of humans on the shop floor will be reduced over time. And if we still, like 100 years ago, lots of people on the shop floor, that's insufficient. Whereas in terms of productivity and efficiency is insufficient. And with this robot, we can increase efficiency, productivity, and eventually reduce the number of humans on the shop floor and move those jobs to a higher office to make decisions.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hugo Westerlund, you've studied workers and job markets, especially in regards to public health, for a long time. What are your thoughts on what we've heard so far?
Well, certainly jobs will be destroyed, that's for sure. But if you look at it historically, it seems that when you have a market economy, there are also new jobs created. And I think one area where we still will need people, that is in the most creative jobs where you need a lot of judgment, but also where you need a human touch, where you need humans to interact with other humans. You could have automated services for sure, which give you a good basis for decisions. But if people are calling in and they are feeling sick, they want to talk to a nurse, not a robot. So I think there's still a big need for humans, and I also believe in human creativity, that people will find new services that will replace many of the jobs. So if you look at society as a whole, I do believe that we will still work in the future.
Do you think, though, that there will be a shortage of jobs in, say, 20 years?
There is already a shortage of jobs, but I think the main problem will be a matching issue. So the problem will be that not everybody will be educated or have the talents to work in these increasingly demanding jobs that you have, since the dirty and simple jobs are taken over by robots. So I think that matching issue is a problem. And also when you talk about this human touch, when you interact with people, then you need people who have social competence. And this will be an issue that not everybody will fit into this new society.
Well, how do others feel about human touch? Is it, I mean, I would agree that I would prefer that in many situations, to speak to an actual human who may have that empathy and so on. But at the same time, is that a cultural prejudice? Could I get used to speaking to a very pleasant robot on the phone about my health, for instance?
Much of the human touch is not necessarily salary jobs, right? So, say I would become very ill, and I mean, maybe the person I would like to care for me most would be my wife. If she could have an expert system that coaches her exactly what to do, right? That would be the best situation for me. Whether it would be for her, I don't know. But,
she might want to go to her meaningful job also.
Yeah, if I mean, given that none of us are working any longer because our jobs were automated, right? Then she would have time to fill, and I would. So I think many of the social relationships that we are certainly very vital, but I'm not sure that they will translate into regular jobs, salaried jobs. So that's my take on it.
How do humans react psychologically to big changes that we cannot understand?
Well, big changes can be threatening and they can be quite stressful, but it's usually in the anticipation phase. So when you worry about a future change, then it is stressful. Then something changes and people are quite good at adapting. So most people will find ways to cope with it. And the stress is often over when you realize, okay, so that happened, now I have to deal with it. So it's more the anticipation than the actual changes that tend to be stressful.
Assuming we can make a living then, because of course otherwise that will be a constant source of stress in this new environment. Let's go in a little bit on that track. I think joining us on the phone now is Julia Kirby, editor-at-large at the Harvard Business Review, co-author of Standing in the Sun, How the Explosion of Capitalism Abroad Will Change Business Everywhere, and currently writing a new book on automation of knowledge work. Welcome to Crosstalks.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Julia, what was it that made you first want to really study and write about this topic?
Well, it really was the sense that the machines were displacing now not just the unskilled or the low-skilled workers, but the knowledge workers who, people who had invested in extensive college educations and were doing work that required those years of brain training. For example, insurance underwriters, radiologists, people who had long, hard-earned education and were now looking over their shoulders at these smart machines. And then also the realization that as we saw the conversation going on about the threat of automation, we saw people falling into two basic camps. We had one group that seemed to be saying, this is a tremendous threat and it will be a job destroyer, and we may as well start thinking about a guaranteed basic income because the jobs will ultimately all be gone. So that's the kind of I guess you would say, the Luddite crowd that finds it very threatening and is resistant to it. And then you have the other camp that says, there are always dislocations that come with technological progress, but they work themselves out, and there's always more and better jobs in the aftermath, and so we needn't worry. And the problem with both of those camps is that they leave the individual knowledge worker with no sense of agency. Like, either I'm sitting here hoping for the best, or I'm sitting here fearing for the worst, but it's not giving me something that I can do to shape my future. So that's what we wanted to do.
Yes. What areas of knowledge work do you think will change the most? Or is there an easy formula to predict whether my job will be gone, for instance?
Well, yes. I mean, I think it's come up already in the conversation, and it's everything that's rule-based decisions, everything that can be codified. So, for example, the work of a financial advisor who's helping someone think about their retirement savings, how they should allocate those assets, that's very computational. It's very sort of a rule-based set of steps that you go through to come to the right answer. Those are the kind of jobs and they're very hard for humans to do. Humans have, trained a long time to be able to do them well, but they're just trivially easy for machines.
You mentioned guaranteed basic income before, and I think we need to introduce this into the conversation. How do you think that this trend of automation will impact our economies? Because today we are living in societies which are large, where we are operating inside complicated systems which are funded based largely on the taxation of the compensation of our worked hours. What happens if we don't work those hours?
Right. I mean, that is the big societal level concern with dislocation of too many workers, is that we will simply have to redistribute the gains that are increasingly taken by a very small number of people. I think guaranteed basic income misses a very basic point, though, which is that it's very fundamental to humans' identity and their fulfillment and well-being, that they be doing gainful work. And so I think, and I also think we needn't be so fearful that there won't be enough work left for people. So to me, a guaranteed basic income is solving a problem that may not exist.
So let's not introduce it until we know it's absolutely necessary. Until the system comes crashing down around us, if it ever does. Let's hope it doesn't. Yes.
Well, I mean, there are some interesting, experiments going on, I think, in Holland and some other places, where they're actually gathering some data about what happens when you break the link between work and income. And so it'll be really interesting to see what those experiments yield.
I think let's return to the studio. What do you feel? What are you thinking about this? About what we're talking about the combination of the connection between work and income, but also work and fulfillment. Gunnar.
First, I would like to say that we cannot equate more or less jobs with value judgment of being worse, good or bad. So there's one issue where there will be more or less jobs than today. Then another question, which is quite independent of whether this is good or bad. These are two different things. And I said, as long as we associate meaning in life with having a job, of course, then we hard code these together. And number of jobs, reduction number of jobs also means social problems and less meaning in life. But that's just one way of providing meaning in life. If you give status and well-being connected to other activities that we do in society for each other and so forth, caring we talked about, then maybe it's not maybe we move to a better society with less jobs. And then we have the other question also, which is this basic income or citizen salary, whatever it is called. I think there it's mostly a question for economists. If there are enough tax bases, there's enough wealth to redistribute on that. But we should also keep in mind that with automation, everything gets cheaper also. With recycling of goods, everything gets cheaper because material cost goes to zero. With more renewable energy, energy goes towards zero also. So there are so many dynamic effects at the same time, so that's why it makes a very interesting question.
But if everything becomes cheaper and we're also not working, then I guess new wealth wouldn't be accumulated. So then it's just the people who are currently wealthy who would have to pay for everything. And historically, they haven't been very willing to do that.
And maybe the big Gates Foundation will fund us all.
We need some nicer, richer people. Just a moment, Julia. Let's do Hugo first. Yes.
Yeah, I think people need incentives to get up in the morning and also be creative and create the new jobs. So I think that, no, we need some kind of redistribution for people who cannot live without them. But I don't think we should have a society where we expect a large number of people not to contribute to the financial life of society. I think we need some financial incentives to actually drive development.
Julia, Kirby.
I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think that it is not only important for the kind of just dynamics of the economy and the continuing innovation process, but also just very psychologically important to people to be contributing members of the society that they are members of.
Lihui, Wang.
Yeah, perhaps we can also change the angle a little bit because I work in the production and the manufacturing side. And now there's a movement that human-centered production, put a human into the center of automation and robotics, not just overtake by the equipment itself. Because if we look at 160 years back, that's a craftsmanship. And those craftsmanship, if we put it into the new product, that's the pride for the human being. And not everything is produced by a machine, by a robot. So this is a new movement. And also job, if we look at shop floor, many people don't want to work there. There's a big need to few people on the shop floor to do the job. And there's a job market on the shop floor. So that we sometimes think automation can replace everything. But the younger generation tries to move to the service sector, to the IT sector, and don't want to go to manufacturing side.
But I think it's very interesting what you're talking about, this human-centered production, because we do see certainly a sort of tendency in there's a joke going around on the internet that artisan is a word for when a middle-class person produces something that used to be made by a working-class person. but there is certainly this sort of great interest in creating things by hand again, and the value of craftsmanship and making something beautiful and durable and unique. But I wonder, does that also combine with technological development in some way? Will the human conductor of his little robot orchestra also be considered a craftsman, do you think?
Yeah, and this has been elevated to a different level. And in the past, everything relies on the human being itself. Now this craftsman has all the support. We have a digital world around. There's all type of different IT system to support this individual to do the job. But still, he's in control of everything. So that's the idea, to have human-centered production.
It's very good. I wonder still a little bit about this, about being worried about our jobs. So if it's very rule-based, then knowledge work can be automated. Julia, are you worried for your job as a writer?
It's a very good question, given that there are, of course, great examples of business journalism being created now by artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And those, thankfully, are not the types that I do. They have to do with reporting on financial filings, shareholder meetings, things where there's just kind of very straightforward, often numbers-based, new content to release, and they're just kind of putting it into prose form. So it's also being done for sports reporting, where the result of this is not so much that journalists are being put out of work, but that many more of these reports are being published. So in the past, maybe a school, a high school level football team wouldn't have its game reported on at all because it wasn't worth assigning a human reporter to it. But now that article gets produced because it can be done so inexpensively and quickly. So, I think that the type of work that I do with authors is so much about developing their point of view, which again, so that has to do with the innovation, the next thing that will be invented. And if that's what you're working on, then you're always one step ahead of the machines that are automating what already exists.
So this suggests
I guess I feel pretty confident.
So this also suggests that if you're a university professor or indeed, let's say, a doctoral level researcher, by definition, you're at the very front end of your field, so then probably you can't be automated.
Well, we, when I say we, Tom Davenport and I are writing this book about how knowledge workers should deal with this threat of encroaching automation. And we kind of see people taking 5 different kinds of steps vis-a-vis the smart machines in their workplace. And so when you have someone like Eric Brynjolfsson, Andy McAfee talking about that we need to stop trying to race against the machine and instead race with the machine, there are kind of 5 ways in which people are doing that. Then since you mentioned scholars, academics, they do a type of thing we call stepping narrowly, where they are often becoming so specialized in their expertise that even though the type of cognition that they're doing maybe could be emulated by a machine, there isn't a market for the machine to do that because they're in such a deep niche.
That's hopeful, in fact. Stepping narrowly is what we're doing. I'm looking at the graduate students in the audience. Hugo.
Yes, I think...
And the old joke the old joke about academics is that more and more about less and less until you know everything about nothing.
Exactly. Hugo Westerlund.
Well, I think it's already happened. Certain aspects of our work has been automated and can be. Like, for instance, I'm working a lot with statistics, and the stats software today can do things that would have required maybe hundreds of people doing computations for me. That has happened, but it means that I can focus on the more creative parts of my job. So I don't see it as a threat there. And maybe this is a parallel to the artisan on the shop floor who can then do more things thanks to the automation. I'm much more worried about the people who are low-skilled. That's where you have a problem. That's where your meaning in life is being replaced by these automated systems, even though some of these jobs were actually quite awful. So it's good to get rid of them in some sense.
Gunnar.
As university teachers, we have 2 roles. We are researchers, where I think it's very difficult to automate us. We will instead contribute to automate others. But as teachers, that's where we see. We don't see a full automation, but we see, just by recording ourselves, we can gain a tremendous efficiency in the process of educating. And with good software systems where we can post quizzes, or self-corrected quizzes, organize students in discussion groups, creating feedback for one another on peer reviewing of papers and hand-ins and so forth. We can tremendously make the education process much more efficient. And that for the same volume of teaching, we need less teachers.
And in fact, I think if research grant funding applications could be automated even in part, that would actually liberate an enormous amount of academic energy, which could be quite useful. I think everyone's nodding, but I guess that's we need to work on a solution for that at least. Let's stay with the topic of education a little bit. Do you think that we are educating students in the right way for this job market? Lihui, Wang.
Yeah, I think there's lots of new things happening around us, and technology advancement in accelerated speed. And look at university, seemingly we are still focused on traditional teaching. And those subjects, of course, is the foundation, is fundamental for students to understand the new technologies. But there's a need to incorporate the latest technology into classroom teaching, and just to prepare students be ready for the job market in the next 5 years. Because today the job market is quite different than before, and it needs lots of skill and knowledge that cannot be filled just by traditional education. So we have a role to change that.
On what level do you think? I mean, how early should the latest technology be introduced?
And this is more on the higher level. Perhaps it's a final year of the undergraduate student or at the master and PhD education. And the student still need the foundation, that's for sure. But this new technology, this component, need to be integrated to the daily education as well. And especially for teaching, we also have a lab component to let students to do hands-on work. That's where we can incorporate the new thinking, new technology, and let students to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you others? Do you think, Gunnar?
So we are at the technical university, and the major leading to master's degree takes 5 years from students starting here. And I think that structure is not suitable for the future. It's too large initial investment of studying 5 years. We have a breadth of courses because we don't really know where we target. So we think that this is good for the students, and we put it into the program, and that's why it's 5 years now. So I would like to see a different structure. I would say 1 or 2 years on campus to build some social relationships and to do labs and so forth full time, and really training intellectual skills, communication skills, and whatever you think are base knowledge that's always good to have. And then I would try to get these students out to work, but not working full time, but working, say, 60–80%, and we keep in touch with them. So based on their needs on the labor market, they will study 1 or 2 days a week with us, and we can tune that education perfectly for the changes in the labor market and for their own interest or whatever it is. Just like you can get a service plan for your car, which lasts for the lifetime of a car. Maybe we should take the same responsibility, say, yes, you got a KTH degree. We take responsibility for your education, for your life. And we simply just follow you. We keep you up to date. We keep you interested. We invite you to things like this, where you get some excitement. And we also are handling your professional training long term. But this is not the structure we have today.
No, but it is very exciting. Julia, Kirby, you mentioned also that many jobs where people used to train and have college educations for are disappearing. Do you find that those college educations are also disappearing, or are we training people for jobs that are already essentially gone?
I guess I do think that education may shift its focus somewhat in that I feel that we, the distinction is always made between hard skills and soft skills. And there are certain things that are very hard for people to do, and that has been the focus of education for time immemorial, to teach us to do calculus, to teach us to do, very high-level pattern recognition, some of the things that are really hard for humans to do. Meanwhile, we just take for granted the things that are easier for humans to do, and we don't spend any time trying to shore up those strengths. And as the threat of automation has infected the schools, they've doubled down on that strategy and said, okay, we have to be even more oriented toward the STEM skills. And we can afford even less time for teaching, citizenship, empathy, some of these other soft skills. I think we're going to learn to respect and value a lot of those human strengths that we take for granted in the past. And we're going to admit that that is the way that humans are going to contribute value in workplaces, and that they need to really be at the top of their game on those things that they bring to the table.
That's very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about this. Because we seem to be in agreement that many jobs of the current many current jobs will disappear, but we also seem to be in agreement that people will be doing something. Do you think that the different qualities will be valuable in the work market? Do you think that different? Do you have any speculation about what kinds of jobs we'll have? You've already touched upon some things, but do you have specific ideas?
Yeah, I absolutely do believe that will change because, we've always had complementarities amongst team members, so that one person was better at sales and another person was better at the analysis. So now if you have a machine teammate, which of those two things is it more likely to take away? It's taking away more of the work of the people who are extremely analytical and have had the many years of math training. So therefore, I'm not sure that the solution to getting your next job is to pursue those paths so hard, as opposed to trying to be the best at bringing some of these still uniquely human strengths to your work.
That's a big cultural change we're talking about. Very exciting. Hugo.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point, because we tend to think that it is the easy tasks that are taken over by machines, but that's not really true. Machines are good at other things than humans are, and human brains are not blank slates. They are shaped by evolution, so we are good at certain things and pretty poor at other things, like Julia Kirby mentioned calculus. We're awfully bad at that, whereas machines are very good at such things. And also, if you think of heavy lifting things, being in poisonous environments, machines are good at that. We're not. So I think rather than thinking of jobs doing the easy tasks, machines could take over what we are not very good at, what is actually taxing us. And we don't have to learn all these things which go against the grain of our human nature. And if we understand our psychology, our evolutionary nature, I think we can find a better match between humans and machines. So each contributes their own strength. So
I guess a reverse way of asking this question is, what is currently farthest away from what a machine can do? And I guess you said evolutionary nature and psychology, so it would be the nuanced reading of human intention and emotion. Would be one thing, that even on a very sort of fundamental scale, that machines are not doing that very well for all kinds of reasons yet. And the other is, I guess, having a human biology. So there are things about human presence and skin touch and so on that cannot be replicated in any other way right now. Gunnar?
By definition, being a human is not, of course, replaceable, but...
So, if you thought about what is the absolute furthest away from what you would want to have a machine do, I would think it would be entertainment. Whether we're trying to be amused by a comedian or touched by some drama that we're watching, it has to contain for us some understanding of the human condition. We need to see that in it. And so that's probably also true of a lot of other, more normal jobs that, like, for instance, caregiving settings and anything that requires empathy.
And creativity. We're back to the artisan again. There.
Yeah, but I don't think our attention span is we don't have enough time to if we all should be Shakespeare's, right? There's not enough time attention span for us to watch all the plays that will be written. So. And some of the creative, when I listen to my son's music, I mean, certainly I cannot see the human creativity in that part. It could have been a machine writing it. So I think we somewhat overvalue creativity. I mean, the rules can be so sophisticated that you don't feel like the rules base. I mean, you break down the compositions into such minute detail that you can pose them back together. It sounds very fresh and novel.
Well, it doesn't actually, though. It has been tried. I mean, so far. But maybe this is just a question of people haven't tried long enough. Yes. Hugo?
Yeah, I think an example could be in healthcare. So far, we've had a tremendous development in medical technology and medicine, which means that we can mend people basically in ways we couldn't do before. But that has actually taken away some of the caring aspects because the nurses and the doctors are doing so many technical things. I think in the future we could actually reverse this. So machines, robots, various expert systems could take over many of these technical things. So humans could become more human and actually provide more care, more empathy, be there as human beings, because the machines can take over a lot of the process which actually does the more mechanical healing of the person.
I guess a reverse of this as well is that many engineers end up in management positions where they're using their human skills but almost nothing of their education, which then begs the question why they spent those several years gaining it. Gunnar?
I think value judgments, this is certainly human. I mean, our morals and ethics, that's something that we have to be in charge of. Organizing a human society is another thing that I think we have to be in charge of. So there are roles, but I come back to the point, how many of these roles translate to regular jobs and how many are things that we need to do anyhow. This is, when we talk about labor market, we talk about jobs, but I think I'm not worried about being idle in any way. Certainly I think that there are many fulfilling roles that we can take on which are not salary jobs. So I think we come back to the point of how a society should work, how should you earn your living. So that, I mean, there are two things. There's a means for living, which is how you earn salary, and then there's a meaning of living, right? And I'm not so worried about the meaning of living, but the means and how we earn a salary.
Lihui, Wang?
Yeah, I agree with Gunnar. And computer or the machines, and of course they can learn, they can be better, they can learn very quickly if there's an algorithm there. But this algorithm, whatever, is a human created. I still wanted to back up my point that human is in the center of the universe. No matter what, those machines cannot replace a human. So that's one of the arguments. And also, I do not think that those machines, computers, automation will replace humans' job completely. After we have a computer, it creates computer science, software engineering, the entire IT sector. That's a lot of job. And if we use a robot and a human working together in a seamless or integrated way in a factory floor, and a human has lots of more job to do. And how to design the system, how to run the system, and how to control them. So that's create a new sector of jobs.
And perhaps a more interesting sector as well, as you said, than what was there previously. We are approaching the close of the hour, so I would like to see whether there are any questions in the audience. Yes, please. Go to the podium and state your name and affiliation. Yes, no, over there at the podium. Oh, there we are.
Hi, good evening. My name is Manshu Gautam. I'm first-year master's student at KTH. My question is related to the last part of the discussion that there was a discussion that with the time span, human can explore their creativity if automation increases. But what if humans became more and more, they are more used to looking at faceless expression of a robot, that they forget what creativity is? If what humans forget to be a human after 30 or 40 years down the line, then what we will do? Will we come back?
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So do you think that there can be a cultural effect of interacting with robots and of spending time in this cultural, this kind of environment, this technological, technocratic environment?
I think it's a really interesting question, and the term people often use is de-skilling when you have lost, when something becomes a lost art because it's just not practiced by enough people anymore. And I could imagine that becoming a problem, but maybe less so with creativity and more with decision making. I'm a little worried that, the way that we learn to make decisions about major things is by making a lot of decisions about minor things. So if in a business, machines are now making all the pretty straightforward decisions where it's easy to tell afterwards, was it right or was it wrong, then how does anyone develop the capacity to take on the harder decisions that may be judgment calls, but much harder to tell was it right or was it wrong?
I think we should hear from Lihui Wang on this as well. Are you worried about the de-skilling in human skills, so to speak?
Actually, I'm less worried about this. People have very good adaptability. Over time, people can adapt to the situation. I don't think at a certain point, maybe at the initial stage, human might be influenced by the robot and look at the facial of the robot. But after a while, human will adapt to the situation, still in control of that situation. And iPhone or some other equipment is the same thing, changed our behavior, but we're still in control of it.
I don't know if we all are, though. I don't know if we all feel that we are in control of our smartphone behavior. So maybe that could be a case in either direction.
Yeah.
Hugo.
I think when a technology is new, then we become more of victims to it. But I think we learn to take over. And actually, iPhone is an example of a technology which has been designed to communicate with humans. So it's actually designed to appeal to us, not to be efficient in a very technological sense. And I think people seek out other people. So I'm not too worried about this. I think we will still be humans.
Gunnar?
I think you have a very interesting point. And I don't think we as human race will act in one way or another. I think this will be polarizing. Some, hopefully, a vast majority will manage well and continue to have human relationships, but some certainly will also succumb to being alienated and not being able to keep human relationships. So I think there's certainly a risk for it. But in many of these aspects, we talk about meaning of life. Some will find new fulfillments. Other, when the job disappears, the whole purpose in life feels like it is gone and so forth. And this is certainly one aspect like that. It's polarizing.
But can I add one more point?
Certainly.
As the way I look at, the more developed we are going, we have less of Beethoven, less of Picasso, less of Leonardo da Vinci. So we are getting more and more technology advanced, but aren't we going on the creative scale on a downhill? I may be wrong. I may be wrong, but I don't look any of Shakespeare right now or Beethoven right now or Leonardo da Vinci.
You have to wait 400 years before you know.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for your question. Yes, can you just elaborate on the answer?
Well, you have to wait 400 years to see what becomes classics of today's creations. So we don't know. But there's also the amount of material produced. Of course, this means that there's many valuable texts and music's written that's never performed, never read. And in there, perhaps it could be gems. I mean, there are composers that are discovered in libraries and turn out their music is perfectly fine and gets recorded again. Bach was not a very prominent composer after his death, but he's now, right? So many hundred years after his death.
So you're saying there is hope, and perhaps we don't entirely agree that the cultural that we are on a cultural slippery slope. I mean, we have produced all of these technologies and things like cities, and perhaps this creativity is driven in another way as well. Hugo?
Yeah, I think there's a risk. It's not really related to technology in that sense, but there's a risk that we become shallow thinkers because we are surfing all this information. So you go to Wikipedia, which is great, but you can't really be sure about the sources, and you tend to trust Twitter and whatever. And this, I think, is a risk. When we're surfing all this information in a rather shallow way, we might be very good at what we're doing in our jobs, but in other areas we might follow the crowd and not really think deeply. And that is a worry, but it's not really technology, it's more the amount of information that we have access to through technology.
So in summation, once again, as we are building tools, it is us humans who have to use them in a responsible manner. We might become narrow steppers with better tools, like our robots at our disposal, or we might become bad deciders and shallow thinkers in the worst case scenario. Are we moving towards a more human society? I think we will have to continue this conversation online. Thank you so much, Gunnar Karlsson, Lihui Wang, Hugo Westerlund, and Julia Kirby. Crosstalks will be back next month with a new exciting topic. Hopefully none of us have been replaced by robots until then. As always, be safe and be brave.